Hey, this is David M. Rain, and this is another episode of No Lies Detected. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Dat Ngo. How are you, Dot?
I'm well, thank you. What's up,
Good.
David?
Thank you. I am good, man. Thanks so much for coming. I
Oh
really
man,
appreciate it.
it's good to share space with you.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So I'm really excited for the audience to hear what your title is
Okay,
and the importance it is in this day and age.
sure. Okay, so it's an interesting thing to answer, actually. Usually it's a very simple question,
Yeah.
but I'm in between three titles, all in 1 year. So I'm currently the People and Culture Manager at a firm called M&R Strategic Services.
Mhm.
Um, Prior to that, like before May, I was the Associate Director of Engagement and Inclusion at Shakespeare Theater Company. And then I'm leaving my current job to join Sittard Art Center as their Director of Innovation and Engagement.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so there you go. Those are three things I sort of exist in at once.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow,
Mhm.
that's deep. So would you say that there's a recurring theme through the jobs? Like obviously they're all
Absolutely.
different details. So what would that be?
Absolutely. It's an evolution, actually. I think the main thing is equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism.
Mhm.
Um, but uh, I will say that there is an evolution in these positions of how that actually manifests. So the next position, I went from the associate director of engagement and inclusion position at the theater, and that was really to change an organization.
Hmm.
Um, that was to change the culture of an organization, to change its practices, to reduce harm, to reduce things like otherism and
Yeah.
microaggressions and all of that. Um, but really, just the surface level stuff, like when people talk about the iceberg with all this
Right.
work, this was dealing with like the peak of the iceberg.
Right.
Um, and then the current position, I feel like it's figured out, like there's more to it, but still only surface level. But I'm really happy about where I'm headed because it's to take those values and do the actual work of how do you serve your community, how do you embed yourself within the community and service to the beloved community, and use these values throughout your practice, regardless of what it is, as
Right.
opposed to just a surface level.
Yeah. So when you said surface, which actually stuck out for me because I always have this personal experience as well, and I'm sure you, both of us men of color, um, a lot of times people seem that they're doing it for theater. They're doing it for they're pretending to be diverse and they're because someone told them to be or because the temperature of society right now is telling you to be, but not because you actually feel it in your gut and you feel like this is what we should be doing. So does
Mhm.
that become a challenge in a room for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's the most, they have no idea that in trying to pose as more woke than they are, or like I'm doing the work, or even dropping the terms and the vocabulary, that in some ways it's not only perpetuating harm, but it's even more harmful because you're posing as an ally, you're posing as an accomplice, you're posing as someone um, that someone like us can trust. um, and then to know, my interrogation skills have gotten sharper, and it's easier for me to go, that's full of shit, like, or and be able to see what's coming next. What's coming next is things like gaslighting.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
we move beyond microaggressions, and now it's become incredibly psychologically manipulative, emotionally manipulative. um, and that's hard. And that
Yeah.
happens far too frequently, and I think even more so now this year, because there's, you know as actually white folks would say, they had more time to read it, they had more time to pay attention.
Right.
um, so they read a couple think pieces from Medium, or from Vox or something like that, and suddenly they're woke, and they're
Right.
dropping the terminology, they're saying BIPOC, they're saying self-care, and they're dropping the terminology.
Yeah.
but they haven't done the internal work, and they haven't recognized that it's harder than that. Like, even as a man of color, uh, there is still internal work I'm doing to take apart my privilege and recognize where I am, recognize the biases that I still have.
Mhm.
That's me, right?
Yeah, so imagine the work they have to do, you know?
Yeah, I don't even think they imagine it.
Yeah, it's probably not fathomable. It's like, it's just it's too big. It's mind exploding, you know?
Like, have you ever asked an organization why they do this work?
Hmm, no, no.
Right?
But yeah,
I've
uh,
actually asked it, and you get these faces of like, "Why'd you ask me that?" Or, "Oh,
yeah,
oh shit, like that's a trap." Because what's compelling people to do it, and especially now? If you didn't do it before, why now?
right. Yeah, exactly, and that's what I meant by, is it the temperature of the society, that weight? And it's like, "Oh, we should probably show that we're doing this." But
It's
so that was one of the things, when you said catching it in time. So, being in the entertainment industry, and also, not even just that. I mean, just any kind of office situation, any kind of work environment. This stuff happens like almost like ninja stuff. The tongue just goes whoosh, and they say something,
Mhm.
and then you're like, and you're in the middle of a conversation. Like, do I stop this conversation? Do I become that person that's changing the mood of the room? But this is actually your job.
Mhm.
So you get
Mhm.
to, like, it's almost like we need people like you in order for us to not worry about it, so I can just go do my job. And it becomes the norm that people should not say these things, do these things, um, you know
Yeah, there's so much. Yeah, there's a lot. Education is a huge component, and that's like my whole toolkit
right.
is education. So um, there's a lot of, you can hold the trainings, you can have the webinars, you can hold spaces with them. I used to run a 45 member EDI committee at the theater, and that was a great learning space as well as processing space and action space, workspace sometimes, but usually it's a learning space.
Yeah.
um, but you got to hold them accountable. You got to circle back and ask them why they thought a certain thing, but allow them to say it too. Like, it's a tricky it's
Well,
a
it's very
tricky thing.
tricky, Dot, because I'm saying, like, a person like myself, if
Hmm.
I'm on a set and that one day cost $1 million to produce, nobody has time to hear me stop and go, "Hey, everybody, wait a minute." Especially if I'm not the actual principal in that scene. If I'm a co-star, you know what I mean? And something happens, and it's like, that's why I'm saying it's like it's extremely difficult. So sometimes you have to swallow stuff, and then in afterwards, or at a break, you're just like punching the wall, and you're just like, "What the hell, man?" You have to go back and be ready to shoot, because that's the environment. So, just keep going, keep going. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of environment. But with you saying that, that's what brings me to the next question, because I was saying, if you were an actual, like, massive army of jobs, and there was so many thousands of you doing this kind of work, it would actually create an environment just across the board for every work environment where it's just normal, just like it became, well, that took years, but it became normal to not sexually harass a woman in the office,
Yeah,
what I mean? But
yeah,
that was because it became a mass movement. And like, but then you have somebody like Trump, who's like calling your job racist,
yeah,
which is total gaslighting, and switching flipping
yeah,
this there. But like, so, the idea of thinking that they want to abolish this, I
yeah.
mean, what's your thoughts on on that? Like, somebody calling your job racist, like,
uh, I don't, it's gotten real easy to dismiss. Like, it's a harmful thing to say.
yeah,
It's a more harmful thing that he's able to do it, has the power to actually stop these contracts from happening,
right,
um, and stop this education, stop this learning from happening. uh, Being called names, though, like, or feeling like undervalued, is, I mean, That's a lived experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Try
so, but
try something else.
the thing that's interesting about it is I don't think these positions are, obviously I don't think these positions are racist. Um, but as he did that, I was doing this my own interrogation about these positions and like what value they actually bring to an organization. What change could they actually affect from within? Like,
Mm,
does this path actually work? Like,
yeah.
are there theaters that have been transformed from within? I don't know. Like you said, you know, we're on set or we're in a space and that happens. How many times have we had to swallow it in order for the harm not to be perpetuated? But
Mhm.
and I'm sorry, if in order for ourselves to just get through the day. But
Yeah.
in that way, we're perpetuating white supremacy. We're complicit in it. And I feel that on a larger level, once you're tasked with the actual job of transforming, like it's one thing to be a person of color in that situation and feel like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't say shit. Now you're tasked with the actual job of arresting that, and you are not in all these spaces. You can't prevent the harm that happens in all these departments. How we market ourselves, which
Yeah.
we see some harmful practices there. How we talk about ourselves on the website, the work we put on stage, the vocabulary we use around people of color, Black,
Mm,
Indigenous people of color. Um, so I do think more people uh, with these values can change an organization, but not necessarily that position, right? It'd be amazing if your entire leadership, your entire board leadership held the same values as your equity, diversity, inclusion person. And
exactly.
that's what needs to happen. Uh, not so even in Trump's criticism, he even misses the point. Like it's just ridiculous. Of course he would miss the point. He doesn't get it. He doesn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not going to get anything but his own point,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
he'll do anything just to stay in office. But that's a whole nother,
A whole other episode.
whole other. Um, yeah. So, all right. The other thing is, so in that case, it's interesting because it's like you're leading to the next questions I had,
Oh,
even
cool.
naturally. Um, so that being said,
Mm.
what do you think it would look like? What would it take? So you're saying that you're not even sure because this is still very early. You're not even
Hmm.
sure whether this is effective. This position is or I guess massively effective. I'm sure you're fixing moments and there are people remembering, people being touched, and people of color that are near you are probably really
Yeah.
appreciating it.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I would love to have you on the set with me. I should, you should come with me on this. Hey, wait a minute. But that's awesome. But what do you see or what effect do you think that this would have on the country as a whole if it became a big movement like
Yeah.
sexual harassment? You know what I mean?
Wow. Um, like I remember growing up and you know, I would say that the world probably was as racist, if not more racist, right? Like 20,
Oh yeah.
30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Um, and yet I felt like even in school, I was taught that it's wrong,
Hmm.
right? Like even in school, I had a sense that every teacher would hold a student accountable if they did something ridiculous,
Yeah.
like call another kid a name or do some of the behavior that we see being celebrated right now.
Right.
I think that's climate's changed. I think I think people if they're racist or have those biases, they've been emboldened to uh, you know I guess like we are, they bring their true selves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like shit, that sucks.
Yeah.
But I think what I would love to see is in the same way we teach like don't touch other people's bodies and respect other people's bodies, respect other people's bodies, including
Yeah.
the color of their skin, including the culture they bring, including their lived experience, including their sexuality or gender or whatever it is, religion.
Yeah.
That's I don't think that's reinforced at such a young age. I think parents, I'll say it, I think a lot of white parents avoid having these conversations about race
Mm.
because the kids are too young, it's too serious a topic, it's too uncomfortable. No, this is the time to do it so that by the time they get to middle school and are picking their groups because that's developmental, right? Like what
Totally.
to identify what's safe and what's membership and belonging, that comes at that time. And wouldn't it be great if race wasn't one of them?
Right.
Um, Now, I at the same time, I think it's important to be with your affinity. It's important to gather as your community, if but not to hate on others because of it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it has to be start from young, start from in the home, be reinforced there, and part of that is a lot. That's the burden is on um, our generation and younger, where their parents, they're the folks that have to do the hard work right now so that they're raising their kids and
Yeah.
creating a whole ecosystem like schools, businesses, um, what they see on TV. It has to be an entire ecosystem that helps nurture them from a young age. At this point, this is how I view it. At this point, my age with these organizations I'm working with, I especially if it's serving one organization as opposed to like a service organization that helps a lot. Um, if it's a single organization, the most I really dream of right now is for harm reduction, for things
Yeah.
like that not to take place in um, on set. But I'm torn because I want them to change in here. I just want them to wake up and be able to walk the talk, hold themselves accountable, admit when they're wrong,
Hmm.
and really support and give space, give power, and share it.
Yeah.
Um, that's not happening, not authentically. And sadly, that's where things like policy come in. And if you've been in power, you just don't want to be told what to do. That's the Trump reaction, right? Don't tell me
Oh,
what to do.
totally. But it's interesting what you said because I've been we had a couple of interviews before, and one of them was with a non-voter, and another one was with an African American who was a Trump supporter, and we were having these conversations about uh, really the bottom line is, Biden may not be the best for everyone, might not even be.
No,
He wasn't the first choice. He wasn't the best choice,
no,
but what Biden is a symbolism of stopping the bleeding
no.
temporarily so we can figure out where to go from there. And it sounds like that's your approach in your position, where you said let's stop the harm, the immediate harm, and then let's go into policy and figure out how, you know this can be eradicated. But you're right, it has to be from the heart. It's not, because otherwise, what are you're gonna have a list of things at everyone's desk? Don't do this, don't do,
Well,
every morning they have to
so
check off.
but white supremacy responds to that because they set
Yeah,
up that rule. They do
right.
have that checklist. So you add
Yeah,
it to the checklist. They go, oh shit. It
yeah, I
says
just
don't be
did that thing.
racist. Number 11, don't be racist.
Put $1 in a jar. I just did number 8. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just sharing space with another uh, two women of color who are both their own bosses.
Hmm.
Really incredible. Um, Ginger Clee is a therapist out in the West Coast, and she said you cannot heal until you leave your harmful environment. Until
Hmm.
then, you're just surviving.
Yep.
And that was like a boom. Yes, so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she described it like being in the forest with a bear.
Hmm.
Like the only thing you can concentrate on there is surviving that moment. Whatever happened to get you there, you cannot actually recognize and heal from until you've left that situation.
Yep. Because that's the last thing on your mind.
That's the
You're
last
right.
thing, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man. Awesome, bro.
I'm curious about your perspective on these positions in these predominantly white institutions. You and I are in the same entertainment field.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've floated probably in the same circles of people and organizations. We know how they're built. We've been around for a while, um, and we've participated in it, and
Yeah.
we've
Oh,
we've
totally.
had to we've had to assimilate to it. So, what for you are you hoping, knowing that these positions, like, here's a question: would
Hmm.
you, now the doors are swinging open, there are artistic director positions, there are associate director positions, managing director positions, positions of leadership that are now really hoping for Black, Indigenous, people of color representation in those roles.
Right.
Do you encourage friends to go after them, or is there are there other feelings about it?
No, no. I mean, first of all, I'm of the belief that nothing will change unless it changes from the top. Like even chair people and like you said,
Hmm.
artistic directors, people that are across the board, nothing's going to change, you know, unless that the top line is actually changed because it's going to reflect what's actually going on from the top.
Hmm.
So as long as the top reflects only white,
Hmm.
then it's going to be all white with people of color getting crumbs here and there, or a little,
Hmm.
you get your little sticker, you get your little award, and then it's like, okay, scoot off. We're going to do, another 3 white seasons, and then we'll bring you back in. And you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would like to see a hell of a lot changed. But I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
what's happening with, the pandemic, it's kind of a restart button in a
Yeah.
sense because
Yeah.
everyone's screwed. Everyone is screwed.
Yeah.
So unless you already had a contract with a series or a major film, you might not be working much right now. And so when things do get, I think people are going to be tired of the same old. You know, there's,
Hmm.
at this point, it's like you turn on the TV, and if there's more diversity, I guess now because there's more content
Yeah,
with all the different streaming,
that's true.
so more people are allowed to bring their stuff in. But we talk about it all the time. It's like, but then there's a quality problem there.
Mm.
So, oh well, just because you're black, we're going to let you bring your movie in. But if the movie's not well done, you're actually killing the situation. You're just letting somebody in because it's a movie of color. But was it well done? Was it well written? Was it well acted? It's like there still has to be a standard of good quality, no matter what
Mm.
race you are. You know.
Yeah. There's also a lot of mediocre white crap though.
Oh hell yeah. Well, I mean,
Like let's just make sure that
oh yeah.
that's
No, no, no.
that's acknowledged too.
Yeah, I'm not saying that white is the gold standard that we're all going against. No,
I
I'm
just
just
had to
saying,
spend an hour and a half watching Hubie Halloween. That was some mediocre shit.
no, there's tons of it, but they get away with it. You know
They
what I
do.
mean? So
They do. They do. Like at the end of the day, I did watch it.
right, right. Wrap this part up, and I'll chat to you after. But we'll I think we're unless you want to say anything else to the audience, like to the viewers.
No, I guess because this, Philadelphia, take care of yourselves.
Yeah,
Um, these are times. This year hasn't let up, and it's far from over. And we got the election next Tuesday. Um, a lot of heavy stuff on people, and so um, I know self care
the
is a trendy
battleground city and state.
battleground city. It's self care is a trending thing, but this year needs more than that. So really steal whatever time and space you can for yourself. Um, love up on your peoples, like really look out for each other, um, uh, and just you know, yeah. I guess that's it. Love
Yeah,
up on each other.
awesome, brother. Thanks so much, Dot.
Yeah, for sure, Dave.